Welcome everybody to this webinar for information on UC Davis student engagement with the Innovation Lab for Horticulture. I'm Archie Jarman. I'm the operations manager with the Horticulture Innovation Lab, and joining us today is Erin McGuire, the associate director, Kristen Becker, a graduate student researcher, and Shaban Rubsum, and also a graduate student researcher. During this presentation, we'll be presenting a little bit of background on the Horticulture Innovation Lab and then some specific opportunities. So I'll now turn it over to Erin McGuire.
Thank you so much, Archie. And thanks for everyone's interest in the Feed the Future Innovation Lab for Horticulture. As Archie said, I'm Erin McGuire. I'm the associate director for the lab, and I handle a lot of the strategic and programmatic themes for the lab and help Archie with a lot of the day-to-day activities. Next slide, please. So at the Innovation Lab for Horticulture, our mission and vision is that our global research network works with and promotes local leadership to advance horticulture and social innovations, empowering smallholder farmers to earn more income while better nourishing their communities. So we at the Horticulture Innovation Lab, we are funded by USAID, the United States Agency on International Development. We're part of a larger US government effort called Feed the Future, which is the US government's answer to global hunger and malnutrition worldwide. So out of a much larger program, the Feed the Future Innovation Labs are the research branch that aims to inform these larger Feed the Future initiatives, which are carried out mostly by USAID Central, as well as USAID missions, which are based in country. So the Innovation Lab for Horticulture is one of 21 Feed the Future Innovation Labs. We're based at the University of California, Davis, and we focus most of our efforts on fruits and vegetables, whereas many of the other labs focus on different crops, such as soybean, maize, or different parts of the value chain, such as integrated pest management, post-harvest, or overall concepts such as sustainable intensification and policy. And you can see here on the right our consortium members, which include other US-based universities, IFDC, which is the International Fertilizer Development Corporation, CNFA, Making Sense, and the World Vegetable Center. Next slide, please. We have a very large network. One of the, I think, largest attractions to working with the Horticulture Innovation Lab, or the Innovation Lab for Horticulture, is our amazing network across the globe. So in addition to our consortium, we also have an international advisory board that is made up of incredible global experts that can provide assistance in fruits and vegetables, but also in the social sciences concerning nutrition, gender, youth, economics, etc. And then the Horticulture Innovation Lab, through its local-led approach, has 4 regional hub managers that manage our work from the countries in which we operate. So the Innovation Lab for Horticulture mainly works within Central America, with Zamorano University as the lead, East Africa, with International Center for Evaluation and Development, and West Africa, with University of Ghana heading up that work, and in South Asia, predominantly Nepal and Bangladesh, with Forward Nepal leading our efforts there. Next slide. So US Agency on International Development and the Innovation Lab Horticulture priorities are focused on local engagement. So we, as an innovation lab, focus on contracting with principal investigators and experts within the countries that we are doing research Traditional agriculture research for development models often fund US-based PIs who then collaborate with in-country principal investigators and leaders. We have made an effort to directly contract with leaders within those countries. And you'll see a lot of those efforts represented throughout this presentation, as it is a priority for us and increasingly a priority for USAID. We also focus on equity and inclusion in our research from an agriculture innovation systems perspective. We think through who is at the table from the beginning and identifying challenges, which you'll again see in our model. We really allow priority setting and challenge identification to be led by those in the countries that we work. And then we also want to incorporate in our applied research and our attempt to attain sustainable development goals, social sciences that focus on how we can bring along women, youth, and other traditionally marginalized groups to have better lives through horticulture innovations, both social and technical. Like I said, we approach our work from a systems perspective. So we don't just develop innovation within horticulture, we also ensure that it is able to address social needs and can scale and get to different users. We also, this round, have an emphasis on engaging with minority serving institutions. That is seen a lot through our Trellis program, which if you get involved with the Horticulture Innovation Lab, you will learn much more about. It is a way to connect US-based graduate students with in-country work and in-country graduate students also with the work that we do here in the US. Next slide, please. So locally led, globally connected, that is how we at the Innovation Lab for Horticulture do our work. And just to give you, to step back a bit, to understand how the Innovation Lab for Horticulture is modeled, because it is quite a unique setup. We are funded by the USAID to essentially grant out funds with other universities and agriculture research for development actors to think about how horticulture can be improved both from a biophysical perspective and a social science perspective for small scale farms in West and East Africa, South Asia, and Central America. So we get a certain amount of money, and then we are, as the management entity, are meant to contract out those funds in order to advance these goals around increasing the livelihood and nutrition of small scale farmers in the areas that we work. To do that, we have set up this model that you can see in front of us, or this framework, I should say, where we at UC Davis, which is the management entity, work with our broader set of local partners, with our staff, our broader network, which includes the International Advisory Board, the consortium, et cetera. And then they work with implementing local universities and organizations. So we at UC Davis, along with our local partners, lead the charge in these contracts and carrying out research, generally over a 2 to 5 year time period, with those that are working closest to the challenges. And the Horticulture Innovation Lab helps to manage this from a monitoring and evaluation perspective, an iterative management strategy. And then we broadcast this information out to our global partners. So we're really always trying to have a dynamic conversation between our global partners and global expertise and challenges on the ground and those that are carrying out that work, and making sure that they're informing each other through a two-way direction. And that, of course, involves technical support, research guidance, capacity strengthening, and co-led strategy development, as well as needs identification and responsive M&A. Next slide, please. So that is what we do here at UC Davis as the Innovation Lab for Horticulture. We're based here, and then we're managing all these research projects through a very specific set of strategies and important goals for us, such as inclusion and diversity and local-led research. Through this, we contract out, as I said, different projects. So we have our regional projects, which focus on appropriate technologies for smart agriculture for small size farms in Honduras and Guatemala, increasing fruit and vegetable production efficiency in the horticulture sector for Nepal and Bangladesh through research and development, and improving the affordability and availability of healthy diets and making healthy diets affordable and available in West Africa, and improving pre-harvest and post-harvest management to reduce post-harvest losses and enhancing marketing and market access of vegetables in East Africa. So those 4 buckets are the priorities for each region, and we have about 3 projects within each region that are funded in order to address those needs. And those are regionally based and regionally directed and informed. Our critical engagement projects are meant to inform all of our research projects and are really helping to bring research driven within a country-specific setting to have larger implications and inform all of our projects globally. And for those projects, we focus on engaging and understanding informal midstream actors in the horticulture sector in Nigeria and Rwanda. So within small scale farming and communities, we're often working within informal economies. And this work really gets at what drives those actors to innovate and adopt. And then finally, determining the trade-offs between short and long horticulture value chains in Kenya. This is meant to give us more insight in the event of a shock like COVID. How do short and long horticulture value chains benefit, or are they challenged? And looking specifically at ICTs within that. Next slide, please. So I'm going to pass it to my colleague Archie. That is an overview of how the Innovation Lab for Horticulture is funded, how we operate, how we're managed internally, and the projects in which we focus. And now Archie is going to talk very specifically about the opportunities for students to plug in within that framework.
Thank you, Erin. So yeah, moving on to some of the opportunities that UC Davis students have here at the Innovation Lab for Horticulture. I'll talk about the types of engagement, but I will briefly say that the Horticulture Innovation Lab, or the Innovation Lab for Horticulture, has been around for about 12 years now on campus. And we've historically really relied on students, both graduate and undergraduate students, through paid and unpaid positions to accomplish a lot of what we do here. So in terms of the paid positions, typically, we have graduate student researchers that will work in the lab here in the office, and then also an undergrad staff person that's typically based out at the demonstration center, which I'll be discussing. The best way to keep an eye on these is through Handshake or our website or social media. Heather Hayashi is our comms person, and she's on the line. She's great in terms of really spreading the word about these opportunities. And then the unpaid internships or research opportunities are not necessarily posted, but we do encourage students at UC Davis to contact us, get engaged. Kristen and Shaban will be presenting later, but I remember the first time I met with them, both of them, maybe even before they were hired, presented different research ideas that they had that aligned with the Horticulture Innovation Lab. And that's essentially how we engage with them. It was just a somewhat spontaneous contact and visit to our demonstration center outside. Next slide. So these are the work or internship opportunities, somewhat categorized. There's always something else that's probably not captured here, but more or less they can be broken out to working out in our demonstration center, which is right here on Solano Field. We're over by probably the closest landmark is the Hyatt Hotel, very close to actually the lake by Puda Creek too. And then there's also supporting different training initiatives or webinars that we have, including participating in those, assisting in research, helping us through administrative support or connecting with our local or with all of our partners, and then of course, outreach communication. So speaking of the demonstration center, so this demonstration center is based on a regional hub model that we have. It's currently being implemented in primarily in Honduras, but at one point we had regional hub centers that were operating similar to this one, where they had different technologies, low cost, suitable, appropriate technologies on display, along with production practices for horticulture in Honduras, Thailand, Zambia. There was one that was somewhat similar in Guinea, Africa as well. And we still maintain one here at UC Davis. And in terms of paid positions, we routinely will have an undergraduate student who's in charge of upkeep and maintenance of this area, which is always a fun job and usually pretty envious of the undergrad student. And then we also have internship opportunities. So in the past, I know that the IAD undergrad program requires for one, I believe it's 2 quarters or 1 quarter, they have to do an internship. We've had IAD undergraduate students come and participate by supporting that paid undergraduate student, or maybe doing some research, or essentially just helping out with maintaining the center that we have out there, which always requires a significant amount of work. So that is one key area that UC Davis students can definitely engage with the Horticulture Innovation Lab in. Training and webinars and workshops. So these, as Aaron described in our model, part of our research is, part of our work as the management entities to help guide these projects or act as a funding entity, but we're also, in a lot of ways, the intermediary too. So as we learn a lot from the projects and the research that are being conducted on the ground, we want to gather that information and those results and turn those into effective outreach opportunities in terms of different extension programs. And I want to highlight here 3 of them that we've done. And of course, in terms of the Gender Up training, although students, Kristen has played a key role in terms of, supporting the implementation of this program, but also, Gender Up is a great program for UC Davis students to take as something to maybe expand your portfolio prior to either conducting your research or to just expand your knowledge base. Gender Up is, and I'll let Aaron step in here too. Essentially, it's a scaling tool to help principal investigators scale up their technology in a way that is equitable for it promotes equity versus reinforcing existing stereotypes or barriers. Is that a fair description, Aaron?
Yeah, that's great.
Thanks.
And we also have someone on the call who can give some firsthand experience on being able to take Gender Up and use it for some of their own research. And I think I can get a link to the presentation on how we were able to leverage Gender Up as a tool to apply it to other organizations that students might be working with, particularly around an innovation.
Perfect, thank you. So the Hort for Dev series is currently housed online on our website. It's essentially, I think it's a 9-step webinar series on how to effectively implement agricultural research for development. So there's components in terms of how to do a value chain assessment. There's a monitoring and evaluation component. It's a very helpful series, both to take and also when we implemented this program, graduate student researchers were through UC Davis were key in facilitating the material that was done completely remotely and finalizing essentially the end deliverable, which is this great video webinar series. We can even provide it for the students that are here online. If you go through the entire series, we can provide a certificate at the end, so you can have that as testament that you went through this course. And I'd say it's a great precursor to anybody who might be engaging in international research for agriculture development, that it lays some good groundwork in terms of guiding your thesis work. And then the last one here on the right side is the New Roots Farm. I don't know how many people are aware of the New Roots Farm, but it's just up in Sacramento. It's part of the International Rescue Committee. It's about a 5-acre plot that is accessible to recent refugees or refugees from, typically now they have a lot from Ukraine, Afghanistan, and Nepal. And they are able to produce, whatever on a small plot, whatever fruits and vegetables they would like to. And in the past, we've conducted trainings with them in terms of post-harvest management and food safety practices. And it's a great way. These are 2 students. This is Michelle and then Lauren to the left, who led that chimney solar drying training with the New Roots Farm. And then, of course, research is a big part of our activities. So UC Davis students have been engaged in research either, through both paid and unpaid opportunities. We do research here at the demonstration center on post-harvest technologies, and there actually has been some research done in terms of horticulture production. It was a small moringa trial that was done both by students, and then of course we engaged with the D Lab on campus. And then this is an example of a D Lab project where the students from UC Davis came and built this insulated box to test the R value of various organic materials that can be found on farms. And then also there is a big push, as Aaron highlighted, in terms of understanding our locally led approach. And this is a research-driven type of understanding where we're mapping through social network analysis, different types of surveys with local implementers and implementers based in the US to understand, barriers and challenges and also opportunities that we can find within this implementation of locally led research for developing pathways for innovation. Anything else that the team wants to jump in there on before I turn it over?
I would just add that in this social/innovation research bucket is, in addition to understanding our local led research approach and the benefits, opportunities, and challenges, is also understanding what makes an effective agriculture innovation system. And who needs to be at the table, understanding power biases, incorporating different social lenses within traditional agriculture research for development. So really highlighting where equity and diversity inclusion makes for better research and gets us to our sustainable development goals faster than maybe we've gone in the past. And of course, that includes not just understanding the benefits, but what are the challenges, what we need to overcome in order to meet those needs.
Thank you. Perfect. So now I'm going to turn it over to 2 actual real life examples of students at UC Davis who have been engaged at the Horticulture Innovation Lab. First, Kristen Becker, do you want to present both on your research with the Pallet dryer in Dominica and also some of your experience as a GSR with us?
Yeah, thanks, Archie. Hi, everybody. My name is Kristen Becker. I'm currently a second year in the International Ag Development Master's Program at Davis. And I started working with the Horticulture Innovation Lab just about a year ago as a graduate student researcher. But as Archie mentioned, even before I was hired to do that, I connected with him and shared my interests in both post-harvest technology and coffee, just to see if there were any possibilities to work with the Hort Lab on my research project for my master's. And this project ended up being perfectly in line with what they needed. So as you can see here, this is the pallet dryer, which is a technology that the lab developed a couple years ago, but it's still in the research and development phase. So they wanted it tested more specifically with coffee, since it's a specialty horticultural crop, but in more tropical, humid environments. So I was fortunate enough to be connected with an NGO in Dominica, which is a little island in the Caribbean, who was interested in having me come over and pilot this dryer there. So on the right side of the screen, that's a picture of the pallet dryer we built in Dominica. And we were able to test it and troubleshoot it and get a ton of great information on how it could be adapted or improved for this type of climate. And I'll be using that to produce an extension material for my thesis, which is wonderful. And then on the graduate student research side, as was mentioned, I'm kind of involved in the innovation network analysis, as well as on different aspects of gender up, and also just general project management tasks that we've had come up. And it's great experience, especially if you're interested in working kind of in a USAID type environment or with any international agency. Anything else you want me to add?
That was great.
Awesome.
Thank you so much, Kristen. And now I'll turn it over to Siobhan Rubsum with the Chimney Solar Dryer in Guinea and her experience as a GSR with the Horticulture Innovation Lab.
Okay, hi everybody. My name is Siobhan Rubsum, and like Kristen, I started working with the Hort Lab about a year ago as a graduate student researcher. And I had a previous experience with the Hort Lab a few years ago when I was in Peace Corps in Guinea. They did some work on with the Chimney solar dryer. And like scaling it out in Guinea. So I got in touch with Archie when I came to Davis, and we kind of came up with this idea of like going back and seeing how is the dryer doing in places that it was scaled at, that there were trainings and dryers were built. So I visited one specific female farming drying cooperative. And as you can see, the photo to the left, that is where the dryers were originally, and they are no more because they basically got destroyed by weather and by rain. And the dryers are made of wood, so they kind of like rotted out with the rain. And then I met with all these lovely ladies, and I did some interviews with them to talk about why didn't the dryer work. And then the photo to the right it's actually that's like the standard method for drying in Guinea. They actually use a table method, which I didn't include a photo of here, but they like basically like elevate do the same kind of thing, laying it out in the sun, but they have it elevated off the ground for hygiene, and then they put like a covering over it. So that was a great experience, and I'll be writing that up for my capstone, and I'll also be creating like Kristen, I'll be creating an extension material, a French chimney solar dryer manual that, based off of the interviews I had with these women, like will be a little bit more like easy to follow and helpful for the issues that they faced, and kind of outline certain things, like something they didn't realize was that the dryer can be modified. So outlining different ways that you can modify the dryer for different climates and different conditions. And then on top of that, like Kristen, as a graduate student researcher, I've been involved with some project management stuff, and as well as been working on some locally led research, like research that is led by the Global South and by our local partners, and not by the Global North management entity as much. So I've been working on some research into locally led research, and lots of other fun little projects, and it's been a great experience, and I'm feel so lucky that I got this GSR. It's really feel like I scored with getting this one, and the team is awesome. So yeah, and the Hort Lab just does so much, just has such a wide breadth of things that they do. So if you're interested in horticulture, if you're interested in gender, if you're interested in scaling, extension, they kind of cover such a huge scope of things. So yeah, it's a great experience. They do great things.
Thank you, Siobhan. That was great. Thank you both for that presentation. And it's a good lead into here, and Siobhan highlighted that we're engaged in a lot of different areas and a lot of different research. Aaron presented on the 4 different priority areas that we have, one per region. Those are going to be, they are on the ground research projects that always, typically there is an opportunity for student engagement in those projects in some way. Right now we're developing or trying to formalize maybe some different avenues for students to engage in, potentially with funding. But I would encourage the people on this call and other UC Davis students that have an interest in conducting research in those areas that match those priorities to contact us, and then maybe we can get you in touch with the PI to think about how maybe your research or your engagement could strengthen could provide, assets to the project. There's a huge amount of work that goes into these research projects. So when somebody says I'm willing to contribute and throw my hand in there, that is always a great thing.
If I could just add briefly, I know Archie mentioned unpaid internships. We often can provide funding, at least for hourly work. We don't have limitless funding, so our GSR spots are widely available, but we almost always can provide some sort of at least hourly funding for depending on what the project is. Additionally, we really want to support you all if you do see some way to connect with our overall network, our projects. You want to contribute your own ideas, as Kristen highlighted. And Siobhan definitely took forward a project that we hadn't expected to take forward in that way, and has actually proved to be very valuable data. We can partner with you to help get Blum funding, JASTRO funding, REFA, etc. So we're just open to multiple different ways to make it work, depending on the fit of your project, etc.
And academic credit too. We have definitely internships here at the office or elsewhere. We can get academic credit for you. Perfect. And then moving on to fueling collaboration. This one was originally titled Administrative Needs, but they changed it. But I want to say that this is a huge part of what we do, is this kind of work. And in terms of, the folks who are interested in internships or opportunities with us, and Siobhan and Kristen mentioned this, in order to learn more about what goes into international development work where you're based off-site, these skill sets in terms of like coordinating, international conferences where people are traveling from all over the world, presenting on different topics, developing reports that go to USAID is a huge asset in terms of experience. Some of these, can be not always the most exciting in terms of like working out at the demonstration center, but you learn a lot about how this work gets implemented. And also you can make some really strong connections during this period of time. So a perfect example is for these conferences, Shaban would be working with Heather to communicate with different presenters for a conference in Nairobi that will be held. And that is immediate connection point to all these amazing speakers that will be there who are experts in their field. And so, yeah, these are, these are at your computer kind of tasks, but they're really valuable. Don't always get, as much interest in terms of people wanting to be an intern doing this, but I really do encourage people to like just be engaged in stuff in like this to learn more about what we do.
Yeah, it really lends itself to project management skill sets, which is critical when you're doing these types of programs.
And I think I missed a slide. And then outreach. I think another way of putting this is, communications, but this is like discussed earlier with the webinar workshop and training series. This is really important and interesting and challenging work is turning research into extension material. It can be extremely rewarding, it can be aggravating, but you'll learn a lot about the technology, about the research project itself when you're turning 3-year projects into some sort of extension bulletin material. These are videos on the left that were from the Chimney solar dryer that we had that students were critical in terms of making the content itself, thinking through how the information is being presented. This is, just a simple handout. I don't know if other people are interested in this extension side. Maybe you've seen that this seems like a very simple handout, but I think it took 3 months of very intense discussions about what these images were conveying. For example, how do you convey time through an image? And I don't know if we got the right thing, but this is definitely an area where student, undergrad and graduate student engagement is really, really valuable in terms of more people contributing to enhance the content and more eyes to evaluate the content. And this also lends itself well to engaging with our international partners too, who, need to evaluate and work on this material as well. So if you have interest in, either paid or unpaid opportunities with us, or conducting research that applies for a thesis or a capstone, please contact me or Kristen Becker. Actually, both is probably ideal. And then, we can work with you to try to figure out either how we can set something up or connect you with the right people, either, Aaron or different PIs that might be working in different locations and different topic areas.
I'm also happy to on the chat if anyone is interested in like GSR, anything about the GSR or anything with the Hort Lab. I'm happy to be a resource.
That's perfect. Thank you, Shaban. And I'll volunteer both you and Kristen in terms of specific IED, because I'm sure there's IED students on here, how that how your capstone research and how that all flowed in terms of coordinating it with Innovation
Mhm.
Lab for Horticulture.
Totally. Yeah, definitely happy to talk to anyone that's interested in that.
Great. I think we can open up to questions because I definitely want to leave time in case anybody has a question. Right now, you can either ask in the chat or please raise your hand and unmute yourself, and we can maybe clarify some things.
Do you see the question, Archie?
Oh, no, sorry. I missed
Are
it.
summer internships available for undergraduates?
Yes. Yeah, we're here year round.
What kinds of internships are available for undergraduates in the summer?
I generally, people are pretty excited about working outside, even though it's hot, but it's nice just to be outside. And in the past, we've had undergrad students that have done a lot of work at the demonstration center. There's the summer is when the demonstration center is really exploding in terms of everything needs to be harvested all at once. And it's always great to have people that come and willing to coordinate, bringing that to their friends or helping take care of those plants and make sure all that food gets utilized. But yeah, it's just, there's a lot of different opportunities.
Yeah, I think from a project management perspective, it would depend on what you're interested in but we can connect you to the right project depending on what you're interested in. So one thing that is sort of interesting about the Horticulture Innovation Lab for Horticulture, is that we contract out a lot of our research, and especially the lab work, because we do not have a facility, particularly to do biophysical work. So a lot of the research that we do in-house will be social sciences, or we're contracting out with another as a subcontract, people to work on biophysical in-field work. So in terms of genetics and seed development, we do have some really interesting work going on in West and East Africa on African indigenous vegetables, and understanding what, from a cultural standpoint, are interesting indigenous vegetables, trying to understand the genetic material and categorize the genetic material, develop seed systems, etc., for indigenous vegetables. And that is becoming more and more of an interest to USAID as well. So I definitely think there's opportunities to connect with these researchers that are working in the field, particularly on 2-week off, like training programs, for instance, that they might want to work with a US-based, UC Davis-based graduate student in the field to offer trainings to those in country and support the work they're doing at the University of Ghana and at CalRO, which is the Kenya Agriculture and Livestock Research Organization. So there's those types of connections absolutely available, and opportunity for in-field work. And then I think we're very interested in policy and technical advice on how to disseminate and appropriately scale the type of information we learn from those projects. And so depending on where you're coming at it from, Christian, those are a couple of avenues of engagement.
Yeah, and that project will also be developing a very elaborate database for those AIVs for West Africa specifically. And then that could be an area of remote collaboration, that maybe you're not in the lab, but assistance in putting together this really important resource for AIV researchers in West Africa. Any other questions? Well, great. Thank you all for joining. Thank you to Aaron, Siobhan, and Kristen. And yeah, please email us, visit our website. I can put the website in the chat, learn more about us, and oh, it's slowly pulling up.
Yeah, we look
And,
forward to hearing from you.
Take care, everybody.
Bye.
Bye, everybody. Thank you for
Bye.
joining. Bye.